St. Antony was born in 1195, 13 years after St. Francis of Assisi, and he was born in Lisbon, which is now called as Portugal. Given the baptismal name of Fernando, his parents, Martin and Mary Balhom, belonged to one of the most prominent families of the city. At the age of 15, Fernando entered the religious order of St. Augustine. Life was hardly peaceful for the youth there, nor conducive to prayer and study, since his old friends came to visit him very often and he was engaged in vehement political discussion. After 2 years at his request, he was sent to Coimbra. There he began 9 years of intense study learning the Augustinian theology that he would later combine with Franciscan vision. Fernando was most likely ordained as a priest during this time. The life of the young priest took a crucial turn when the bodies of the first 5 Franciscan martyrs were returned from Morocco. The Franciscans had been preaching Christ at a mosque in Seville. They were in danger of being martyred at the outset, but the Sultan allowed them to pass to Morocco, where after continuing to preach about Christ, despite repeated warnings, they were tortured and beheaded. In the presence of a huge crowd, including the Queen, their remains were carried in solemn procession to the very monastery where Fernando lived. This event, while viewed by many as tragic and sad, was deemed glorious, and in fact was an inspiration to young Fernando, so much so that it inspired him to make a momentous decision, one day, that he would change his life and the lives of many to come. He decided that he too would become a Franciscan. So to accomplish this, he asked permission to leave the order of St. Augustine. After some challenges from the prior of the Augustinians, he was allowed to leave that priory. The young Augustinian monk called Fernando went to the convent of St. Antony, where he took vows of the Franciscan order and assumed the name of Antony in honor of the patriarch of the hermits. True to their promise, the Franciscans allowed Antony to go to Morocco to pursue what he felt was his calling, to be a witness of Christ and a martyr as well, if God asked. But as often happens, the gift Antony wanted to give was not the gift that was asked of him. While in Morocco, he became seriously ill, and after several months, he realized that he had to go home. During the journey home, his ship ran into storms and high winds and was blown east across the Mediterranean. Eventually, his ship made land on the east coast of Sicily. The friars at nearby Messina, though they didn't know him, welcomed him and began nursing him back to health. Still ailing, Antony wanted to attend the great Pentecost chapter of Mass. Francis of Assisi was there and was also sick. Since Antony was essentially a visitor from out of town at the friary in Sicily, he received no assignment during the chapter of Mass. So he has to go and be with a provincial superior from northern Italy. Instruct me in the Franciscan life is what he asked, not mentioning his prior theological training. When the provincial superior agreed, Antony was overjoyed. Now, like Francis, he had his first choice, a life of seclusion and contemplating in a hermitage. Antony was first recognized for his great gift of preaching at a gathering for the ordination of Dominicans and Franciscans in 1222. After they finished their meal, the provincial suggested that one of the friars give a short sermon. There were no intermediate volunteers among the group, so Antony was asked to give, and he told just something simple, as he presumably had no education, and the time it was only 27 years old. Antony, while resisting the offer at first, finally began to speak in a simple, artless way. The fire within him began evident. His knowledge was unmistakable, but it was his passionate manner in which he spoke that truly impressed everyone in the attendance. Once his talents and knowledge were exposed, his quiet life of prayer and penance at the hermitage was exchanged for that of a public preacher. Francis heard of Antony's skills as a preacher and reassigned the young priest to preach in northern Italy. We know that not everyone was impressed by his teaching. Legend has it that one day, faced with deaf ears, Antony went to the river and preached to the fish. That reads the traditional tale which got everybody's attention. Antony travelled tirelessly in both northern Italy and southern France. Perhaps it was around 400 trips, choosing to enter the cities where the heretics were strongest. Yet, the sermons he had left behind rarely show him taking direct issue with them. As church historians interpret it, Antony preferred to present the grandeur of Christianity in positive ways. It was no good to prove people wrong. Antony wanted to win them to the right, the healthiness of the real sorrow and conversion, as well as the wonder of reconciliation with a loving Father. Antony's superior, St. Francis, continued to hear glowing reports of Antony's sermons, knowledge of scripture, and devotion to Mary. In 1224, he wrote to Antony asking him to teach his brother Franciscans. Antony became the first teacher of the Franciscan order to be given special approval and blessings of St. Francis. Antony continued to preach as he taught the friars and assumed more responsibility within the order. In 1226, he was appointed provincial superior of northern Italy, but still found time to contemplative prayer in a small hermitage. Around Easter, in 1228, at the age of 33, he met Pope Gregory in Rome. The Pope had been a faithful friend and advisor of St. Francis. Naturally, the famous preacher Antony was invited to speak. He did it humbly as always. The response was so great that people later said it seemed the miracle of Pentecost was repeated. Back in Padua in 1231, Antony preached his last and the most famous Lenten sermons. The crowds were so great, sometimes 30,000, that the churches could not hold him. So he went to the piazzas and open fields. People waited all night to hear him. A bodyguard was needed to protect him for the people armed with scissors who wanted to snip off a piece of his habit as a relic. After his morning mass and sermon, Antony would hear confessions, and this sometimes lasted all day, as did his fasting and constant prayer. The great energy he had expended during the Lenten season left him very exhausted. He went to a little town near Padua to rest and recover, but he soon realized death was coming close, and he wanted to return to Padua, the city that he loved the most. The journey in a wagon weakened him so much, however, he had to stop at Arsala. In the end, he had to bless Padua from a distance, as Francis had blessed Assisi from a distance. At Arsala, he received the last sacraments, sang and prayed with the friars there. When one of them asked Antony what he was staring at so intently, he answered, "I see my Lord." He died in peace a short time after that. He was on 36 and had been a Franciscan for only 10 years. The story and tradition of devotion of St. Antony of Padua began almost immediately upon his death on June 13, 1231. Thousands came to view the body of Antony and also attend his burial. His grave at once became a place of extraordinary devotion and numerous miracles. The following year, his friend Pope Gregory, moved by the many miracles attributed to him during his life and that occurred at his tomb, declared him a saint. In 1946, Pope Pius officially declared St. Antony a doctor of the Church. In the spirit of a fellow Franciscan, St. Antony of Padua, may God bless you.